have to look. But you look at like
we got 16% living on the poverty level.
Yeah, that's what they're going to base it on. I mean, Wythe County would get 1,700. Lee County gets more, gets close because of their same boat.
They ain't got that many people.
Wythe County gets 1,700. Pulaski was 1,700. And you take populations and compare to those two areas, and then compare it to us. And she says to handle that kind of wage.
That's even a heavy caseload, though, for
That's
poor people.
extremely heavy case.
Good morning.
How's it going?
Whew, I don't know. Too early to tell.
18,000?
1,800.
Okay, maybe I thought
How's your
I
wife
thought it was
doing?
1,000.
1,800.
Okay.
But you compare that to,
How's your wife
say,
doing?
Chesterfield County gets 1,300.
She had a doctor's appointment this evening. They're not going to
Chesterfield County gets
They not?
9,300.
There wasn't any in the lymph
And
nodes.
when you look at like Louise, it's
She's
just
got to do
1,600.
36 radiation treatments,
I just don't understand.
but they won't start those till sometime in March.
I'm telling you.
Put a drain on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
At least you don't have to do chemo. That's another drug.
Yeah, it was 6 months
See,
of
both
chemo.
sides is 4.
That's what she was facing.
It looks very
There wasn't any
strong.
in the lymph nodes,
It used to
so.
not be that.
She sent me, I had her send me a caseload that she's got right now
Doing good?
for the eligibility
Might as
work.
well be.
And
Well, you're looking at
they're averaging,
you know.
well, here's one of 338 cases.
I feel like I've been run over and hit.
338, 300. And see, there's no way that they can add,
Now, I don't know what's entailed. I've never done that.
there's a lot of work, especially if you get into ones that's got children involved and they've got foster care, they have to go and visit them each month.
Once a month. And guess where we're going?
Virginia Beach,
I'm going to Virginia.
North Virginia, because they're not
Yeah,
working.
we don't have any.
So I don't know, it's going to be,
That's a lot.
it's just something to keep in the back of our minds.
I knew there was a reason.
Where is Little Snake Creek Road?
It connects Greenberry with Snake Creek.
Okay.
I don't see how many we expect us to. They
Trying to-
just slow down.
If you go, are you familiar with Greenberry? Hello, sir.
On everything else. Hey.
Steve,
Robbie, how are you?
I'm good, how are
The
you?
recommendation is to either close or fork or Glazerboro 1. And that's not going to help you a whole lot. And here is another man.
Oh, in the voting thing.
Yeah.
What do you gonna move? We need to be part of it to Laurel.
They can't do it
Why?
because
Yeah, the new
there's
budget book.
rules
It's
on
not
distance.
pretty.
One of your
We used everything that we had.
clients
for
up
months.
there, J.E.,
I know
I
it's on
believe it
distance.
was, he called me.
Well, how the heck?
About to turn him over to the
Why are they?
DMV.
I gotta
I guess
pull
he
up
hadn't paid his tax. And he'll
Over.
talk about
That would be a
mobile
good
home or
possibility.
Yes, that would take a section
Oakwood
of
mobile home.
Yeah, because all those people.
and they can
No
use the
longer
same
valid
number.
something he's taxing for. I tried to help him. He called me Friday night. I tried to help him because of the property thing.
Just the
He had
healing
to,
process.
Had to give him his social security number and all that, you know.
Yeah.
That ain't right.
Just
I
well,
just called
half
him
of
back
them,
and told him,
you
I
can
said,
do
"Your
half to Laurel, half
system
of
was
the
down this
intermediate.
morning.
Well,
about
that'd
2
be
hours.
logical.
He called
And
me.
then so that western part, so let's go to Dutchburg.
Yeah.
Give him 2 hours
Or
and
eastern
called him
part,
back.
whatever you call it.
How you doing? My wife was saying, you need to dress up a little bit. I did.
I looked at some of this stuff right here today. Some of these things right here.
Put the county administrator's picture on the budget.
I did talk to.
I didn't know. No. Look, you were getting me in trouble.
This was mine originally.
That's the old one. Now you got a new
Says they
one.
refer to you.
This one replaces this one. We used only in-house office
I
supplies,
thought
so
I
we
bought
did.
this from, oh,
No,
okay.
I just gave you that one.
Well, let me
That's from
give you,
last year,
all right, you take this because,
because you don't want
She
him
said they
staring
refer
at you.
well, I said, sometimes I have these bad terror dreams. I see,
Thank you, but I'll put this in the collection.
you may have it, yeah.
What we're doing for now, what we're paying now.
Yes.
It's hungry.
I know.
Call this budget meeting to order. I guess it's just reopen the meeting from the adjourned meeting of our last regular meeting. Bob, will you lead us in a pledge and invocation, please?
Yes, okay. Prayer first. Heavenly Father, we give thanks for this day, one of the most warmest, beautifulest, rainiest Februaries on record. And thank you for the weather, and thank you that we don't control the weather. Father, we ask a blessing for each family represented here, each person here, and we pray for safe travels going home. Father, it's a tough situation on this budget. We ask for your guidance and direction on as we try to develop a budget for the county. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's good to see everyone out tonight. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here tonight. Staff, thank you all for being here. I guess get on to our topic of discussion will be our budget discussion. And
I will start if y'all will put up with me for just a few minutes. Tonight, although I wouldn't say that all the work on the revenue side is quite done yet, I think we might all agree with that. The focus of tonight is expenditures, which is always very popular discussion. So what we have tried to do, it's almost like, you ever seen those bowling alleys they set up for little kids, where they got rails on both sides and they throw the ball down there and it bounces to one side and it bounces to the other side, but by the time it gets to the end, it hits some pins. And that's what I'm hoping we're going to happen tonight. But we have two straw man budgets to offer you tonight as a point of departure for discussion. And this is so we can outline philosophically how we're going to finish the budgeting process. We can take either one of these as an anchor and make adjustments to it. We can take either one of these and dive down as deep as you want to get on any topic, and pull the data out and get together and make some decisions. But the two straw man budgets we're talking about, I'm going to refer to one as the initial budget. And the initial budget resulted from the current status of the revenue discussions and the current status of how much of the revenue we should use for the current year. Should we use just the current revenue and nothing else? Should we use a little bit of the past due? There's a lot of different feelings about that represented in this room, so we're recognizing that. And for the initial budget, for the initial discussion, we're going to say we'll just be using current revenue, whatever that ends up being. The current state of the fund balance is another reason that we're coming up with this initial budget, which we'll be talking more about in a second. We're not in compliance in the fund balance. We're aware of that. We're aware that it's important to take steps to get to where we are in compliance with it. The overall financial condition of the county is a popular topic for conversation wherever you go. I would like to show, as part of this initial introduction, that although the financial health of the county is not where we want it to be, it is improving, and that if we continue to do some of the things that we've been doing and maybe some of the other things that we're going to recommend here tonight, that it will continue to improve. And then the last thing we've been having to deal with are spending trends for items that are just difficult to predict exactly what they're going to be, but lately they've been going up pretty darn fast, like the jail, like the CSA. The second budget that we have included in your package is, I'm going to call it a goal budget, and that's based on a recommended course of action that I'll put in front of you for discussion, and it's nothing more or less than that. We can anchor, as I said, around either one of these approaches or something in the middle, and we can continue to put in whatever items that are in the budget that we want to dive down into and look into. But the goal budget is based on continued judicious cuts like we've been going through. And, in my short tenure here, we've already come up with over $500,000 of little cuts here and there, just in county general. Prudent spending. We want, if we can, a goal of this, the goal budget is to preserve the current levels of services offered by the county government. We don't have to do that. I mean, that's another thing we can look at. Cautious investment in economic development, reflecting both the responsibility to complete the deals we've already done as well as the need to continue. That's actually part of the CIP, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that in a minute. And then, of course, continued rehabilitation of the fund balance, because the more money we get in there, the more flexibility that you all have to make decisions about long-term investment for the county, because that's where a lot of it does come from. So, like I said, either or neither can be where we end up, but it's something to talk about and get us started. So the initial key budget has some key assumptions. The initial budget has some key assumptions, rather. One is, for that particular version of the budget, none of the delinquent taxes that are out there, the $5 million plus, would be budgeted towards 2019 expenditures, that should say, or revenues. I mean, they got to balance on both sides. No contingencies are included in that budget. So if something breaks, I'm going to have to come back to you all and explain what broke and what happened, and we're going to have to see if we can find some more money somewhere. No CIP investment, at least not until the money shows up. And then we can take it, and we can decide what order y'all want to spend it in, and we can add things back into the CIP as we see fit after we've done however much renovation of the fund balances we're wanting to do this year. No merit raises this year, so the staff won't like that, but I want to send a message that we're serious about doing this. I really don't think that the amount of money that saves in and of itself makes that big of a difference, but I think that the psychological message is important. No COLA adjustments either for the same reasons. Now, and I realize that the state does this different rates and different times than we do, so this might just be evening something else out that's already happened. Again, as I said earlier, we want to continue to look for cuts where we can find them. I really I'm not looking to, just to yank entire functions out. And I got to tell you, I've looked through all of our departments. I don't see the ones that are sitting around eating bonbons and doing nothing. But we're looking for cuts in this initial budget position. We've talked about hard billing in this room for CCFR and other emergency services, but it's really firm billing. I mean, what we're talking about for citizens. The paper's not even here. We don't have to bother with this one. We all understand what we're going to do is if you can't pay, we're going to ask you to request not to pay. That doesn't mean you won't get a bill. Whereas now you can just say, I ain't paying. I think that subtle difference will result in double-digit increase in percentage of collections. I'll let Everett comment more on that. This assumes level or reduced funding of the schools. That is not a done deal. And what I mean by that is that includes the CIP items like new buses and roofs, so that's a pretty significant cut, really. But that's not a done deal, so we have work to do in that area. And we're also saying nobody wants a tax increase, including us. So where did it all come out at? It came out at the 2019 expenditure level of a little over $41.6 million. And you all know where the money comes from. If you go from here with property taxes around to about here, which is what we get from the state, while they're forcing us to spend money whether we want to or not, that's 90% of the money that we get. That's where it comes from. And we need to, in these areas, we need to insist on at least acceptable performance on the revenue side. And more on that later, but we can't just say doing 96%, 88% is all right. It's not. It just isn't. But that's about, we're not talking about revenue tonight, except in the abstract. So the spending difference year over year from the 18 adjusted to the 19, this yellow line, I made it yellow, this is county general, but I wanted to be fair. An awful large portion of that big reduction is the CIP, so I don't want to overstate, but we did find a lot of significant reductions in addition. Some of this constitutional number is also CIP, though. I could have made that one yellow as well. Education I made yellow because it's not a done deal yet. And then up here, this is basically the CSA and other state mandated stuff we got to match, and we're thinking that's going to continue to go up, and we're hoping that the jail will go up a little, but maybe not as fast as it has been. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that number in a minute, but it's an increase. So having said that, there's not, when we decide before we finish here tonight, what I hope we're going to decide is, let's take a budget philosophy away from here as a starting point, and then let's gather up data from everybody, because everybody's got different opinions about things we ought to look at. And so we can look at service levels, staffing levels. I mean, my own approach to staffing is to continue to not fill vacant positions as we have been doing. We filled a couple part-time ones, but in general we're not. And we're starting to feel it a little bit. I mean, I don't know that we're really all that fat in any of the departments that I look at closely. We're just not. But continue to look for ways to reduce the debt, like we did last year with the refinancing of this building. What did we save on that? $28,000 for this year. That actually helped pay for the overrun in the jail for this year.
Oh, this year it was 66.
I thought it was more than that. Yeah, 66,000 the first year. Well, we can find another 66 in one of these other debts. We'll go after it, but it gets harder as you go. We took basically all the contingency and economic development money, which actually is classified as CIP, so I'm being a little bit redundant here, is out of the bare bones budget. I personally would like to put a little bit of it back in, and maybe we can add to it as things go well, but we'll discuss that later. One member of this board asked that all the charitable deductions be removed, with the exception of one charity. We haven't done that yet, but that's something we could, if that's what we want to do, we can take them out. I mean, that's just an example of the kind of things that are open to us if we want to do it. We can talk about what we think the price of gas is going to be, because that's a huge budget item for us. And there's a lot, people will tend to hide stuff in their fuel budgets, but on the other hand, that year it goes up 30 cents a gallon. That's the year we would get bid if we didn't have it. So, but whatever else is on your mind. So I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on this, because we're really talking about looking forward, but we talk a lot about how we got here and what kind of shape that we're in. And I just wanted to point out, I'll learn how to use this thing one of these days. If you go back over the last 10 years, we used to run under $40 million, and the single issue that really put us over that was the financing for the Q scab. So whether we did anything else, that would have pushed us up around in there somewhere. Now, in addition, in the same time frame, and a lot of you lived through this, we bought some land and some buildings in here, and we started a gas company, and we did a lot of things. So what these two lines are showing you, the green line is what we actually collected, and the red line is what we actually spent. So there's where our fund balance went to. And you can see down here the difference between those two numbers. You can also see, though, happily, we're creeping back up towards being in the black here, and we want to keep doing that. And this is based, even with the adjusted 18 numbers, I think we're going to see another improvement despite the tough blows that we have had to work through on CSA and on jail and on a few other areas. So every one of these years, something came along that was on top of just trying to take care of business. In year 2 here in 2014, we took Woodlawn School back from the school system, and we've been paying for it ever since. It's one of my big priorities is to try to get that repurposed for something and back on the tax rolls. We also continued to do those economic development projects. And the next year, we got the Lovell's Creek thing and the new voting machines. Then in 2016, we bought the farmers market back from the state. And that the first Q-scab repayment also hit that year. And that was decided at some prior time that the first payment would be out of the fund balance.
That was the 15 million we got from the state on
Yes,
the
sir.
school.
That was
Interest free for 15.
cheap money for a while, and now it hurts a little bit. But it is what it is. I mean, we have it, and we need to work through it. So I just think that this is, it doesn't change a thing, but I think it's educational. I think what it shows is that real efforts are being made to improve, and we want to keep doing that, and I'm hoping we can do that. One way, if you got a patient who needs to lose some weight, one way to do it is to kill them. I really don't want to kill the patient. I just want to slim them down a little bit.
On the line when you talk about the red line there in 14, and so forth, we did a lot of things that like ended up it saved Lee's. I call it Lee's carpets. It was the natural gas certainly reduced things, and I think it led.
Yeah, I'm not saying the natural.
Yeah, I know that.
I mean, the natural gas. It's great that we have it now, but it costs us a lot of money, and I think the gas company also got a lot of really fantastic assets at a very attractive price. Having said that, I'm glad we got gas. I mean, sometimes it's just rough. So meanwhile, while all that was going on the revenue side, and you can't really see this, but the amount that we billed went up steadily. Back here in these days, we're building 12 million and 14, and 14.0 up to 14.6, but our collections are actually going down, not up. And I know some of that is just a function of how old this stuff is. The older it gets, it either drops off or it eventually might get collected, but none of this is newer than 2016. So it's a contributing factor. And the same thing over on the, I wish this was more legible, but these are the reports you've seen. They're Benita's reports. So $5 million is out there that belongs to you that we can do any number of things with. We can rehabilitate our fund balance. We can take care of business with the CIP. Maybe we can do a little bit of current business with it just because it's only fair. You know, if you think you're going to collect 96, 97%, you only collect 93. If you can get some of it back from a prior year, that's not quite the same thing as eating your seed corn. That's something we can discuss. But this has been going on at the same time all that other stuff is going on. Just, I'm going to say one thing, you know, I know it's frustrating to you guys when we come to you and we say, you know what, we need another $400,000 for whatever. And I just wanted to show you over time, some of these things, there's just no rhyme or reason to it. Like, for example, what this blue line means is, this is how much over or above or below the budgeted amount that the jail finished at. And this orange line is what we budgeted. So the first year, we came in just a little bit below. So some rational person said, well, you know what, we better raise it up. So they raised the budget up, and then the next year we came in way below. So they said, oh shoot, we better raise it up again. And then all of a sudden we came in way above. So then, you know, and we were above 3 years in a row, so we stayed kind of flat. The only thing I can't really defend is in 2015, we finished way below. You wouldn't have expected this climb in the budget to start a year earlier. Okay. Now, there were some, the thing I will say about this year, though, I did go look at what the jail had budgeted, and we budgeted, I think, a little bit more than maybe they did. But live and learn. So the next year, we come in way down, we budgeted way up. We came in way down, we budgeted way up. And we're going to do it again this year. And at some point, you got to figure that place has got to be full. Or, you know, I know that part of what's going on here is that the court system has more court dates now than they used to. Okay, it is what it is. So, but there has been an attempt to look at what this stuff has happened over the, and we can do better. But you know, at some point you got to say, let's have another year like this. We're doing. They do happen sometimes. Anyway, so would you guys, as a group, and this is the beginning of some discussion, although I got a few more slides here. But what I'm trying to gauge by your thoughts, your reactions, and whatever you actually say out loud is, would you rather have something like the initial budget or something more like the goal budget, but with, you know, pretty tight, you know, pretty tight goals about economic rehabilitation built into it? My own preference, and I guess I can talk about, here's a recommendation. This is just a recommendation. I think myself that we should budget aggressively but fairly for the collection of both current and back taxes, regardless of what we decide we're going to do with it. And we've taken some steps to do that, and we need to not let up. We need to, in my opinion, I'd like a fair amount. And is that what we budgeted last year, the 1.4 million, or is it half that? Is it, I don't know, but some portion, some fair portion, but a conservative portion of the back taxes should be put towards the management of 2019, just because it's taken us 4, 5, 6 years to get where we're at. And we really, I don't think that a budget with no contingencies in it, you know, no CIP at all, I don't know if that's what the message we want to send to the county or not. Now, that doesn't mean that we're in high cotton and we budget it all, but maybe some piece of it that makes sense and makes it so we don't have to come back, you know, every time gas goes up 15 cents a gallon or whatever. That would be my preference, but obviously we're here to implement your preference. So I've already talked about contingencies, and contingencies, particularly in areas like we were just talking about. Maybe our increase we're budgeting for the jail isn't enough. I hope it is. It's certainly in line with what they're telling us they think. But the one thing that we don't think about, you think about the jail, it's a building. At some point, it's going to be full, right? You can't take any more prisoners. I used to think that way until I realized that if they have fewer Grayson County prisoners, that means there's more room for Carroll County prisoners.
Exactly right.
It never stops. And we seem to be doing our best to take as much of that room as we can. So I don't know. Then the remaining back taxes, put it in the fund balance. Just, we can budget that. I'd budget it all. I'd say we're going to collect all of it, 100%. That doesn't mean that it has to flow down to expenditures for us. We can have a line item in there that says rejuvenate fund balance, and it's a negative number, and that's where all that stuff goes, or some of it. But I think we ought to get it all. It's your money. So once you are satisfied with some level of fund balance improvement, and I don't know that we have to get all the way there in 1 year, we made a big step forward, then let's go get a new fire truck. Let's go fix the schools up. Let's do the things we got to do so that we're still a great county in 10 years, because we got to do some of that too. And mind the pennies and look for the best ROI possible. I'd like to spend a little money one of these days on travel, but I'll tell you what, whenever I do go somewhere, I'm working for you guys without spending any of your money. If I go to Dallas or San Francisco or Denver or anywhere, I've been to all those places since I've been working here. I got friends in those places, and they hear about Carroll County, and we'll just do it that way for a while. But someday, I'd like to get even more aggressive, because the future is coming up with new ways to make a living in addition to what we already do. So what do you want to do? Which kind of budget you like better? Or do you want something in the middle? And we can talk about this, we can dive down. You got questions about particular things in that book? I got someone over here who knows all about it. Yes, sir.
I got a question on, I know the guy presented closing 2 precincts would be a good savings.
Yeah.
I would get shot. I could not vote for that.
If I was you, I wouldn't vote for that. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
See, I think a hybrid is what we need to look for. A combination of what you're saying, Steve, a combination of everything in general. I think we still need to be pretty tough on some things. How fast will our return come in on these delinquent taxes is another question. I mean, I know
judging by the response before there's even been a single name in the paper, I'm betting pretty fast.
Well, I know that from reading some stuff on the Virginia website, once it's sold, and you can help me out with this a little bit, Steve. Once it's sold, it takes about a year before we can collect any money. Is that typically what happens, or?
I think what you're saying is once it's referred.
Once it's referred to you all,
sale.
For sale.
Yeah, so there's a process, and so once it's referred out, the first thing that whoever the collector is, I'm going to take me for example.
Yeah.
The first thing we would do is send out letters to all the delinquent taxpayers that the matter has been referred to us and subject to sale. And we send those out to, if there's a mortgage, we send it out to the lender, and because that will wipe out, a tax sale will wipe out the lender, so that's actually a very productive way to go. You can send these notices out. Lots of times the mortgage company is now paying delinquent taxes, adding it to the principal of the mortgage. I would say you probably get about 20% response at that early stage. And then as you go through the petition process, you actually file suit and take it through. The closer and closer you get, the more you collect without actually going to sale. Going to sale, is what you need to do in order to have that credibility. But really, kind of really making its money on saying, we're gonna get tough now, this is the process, you've got this amount of time, and something's gotta happen. But I would expect you probably get 20% of whatever's referred to the delinquent tax collector in a matter of months, and then the rest is gonna take a little longer. And 9 months to a year probably is a realistic time to actually have those properties sold, deeded over to the whoever was the high bidder at auction, and have an order of confirmation.
Can I add one more thing based on some history? There's great efforts that happen by the time it hits the paper the first time initially, and before it gets referred to the taxpayer. So the collections have crept up over the last few weeks. So he's talking about the amount that's referred, but before that, this window has been.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it hits the paper, about to hit the paper, you may see.
I know that they've been very busy in both offices downstairs for the last 2 weeks, so.
And it's important to recognize that what you're gonna get back depends on what is referred out.
Yeah.
So if you know, your tax collector's only getting the junk properties, that's what you're gonna get back.
Yeah.
So it needs to be a good, you want a good cross-section.
You want a good mix so you can get,
In each batch,
yeah. And I just want to reassure what I'm thinking on this. Our delinquent tax amount that is owed is just the tax. It don't include what the property value is, correct? Or is it property value that is included in that also? Like the $5 million we're talking about in delinquent tax, that's just the tax dollars. I thought that was.
I'm not sure that even includes penalty or interest.
Okay.
Okay. I'd have to check. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Not 100%.
Looking back at what was sold in August, because, I know we still collect those delinquent taxes, but that property brought nothing. I mean, it brought absolutely nothing as far as what the property brought. I mean, the house that was sold over on Cavalier Drive, I think was valued at $70,000. It had an assessment of 70 and it brought 29 or something like that.
Yep.
So, but.
And that's what you're selling it.
But we're getting our tax dollars out of that.
Right.
That's what I'm asking. I mean, that's what I'm after, yeah.
The bidders are gonna be smart about it.
Yeah.
They're looking for that bargain.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it's not surprising that you're gonna get it for a third of the tax assessed value. It's slightly overlooked.
I mean,
The hope is that it's enough to pay the back taxes and then the buyer having received a spectacular deal.
Yeah.
Paying the front tax.
yeah.
That's a good point. You're getting it back on a tax roll.
Yeah, to get somebody else paying that's going to maybe,
Also, in the last page of your revenue report, there's this delinquent real estate sale, non-revenue, on page 6. You had a small amount in 2014 of $1,600, but in
Excuse me, which one is,
in your budget book, your new book,
okay,
your new book,
yeah.
revenue report,
Section 6,
no,
section 1.
we're in
Page 6.
section 1, page 6.
yes.
Okay. On the center of the page, right under the total for revenue to federal government, you have $48,000. That money was money remitted from the clerk of court from the sale of the properties in 2014, the excess that went far and above the tax value on the property.
Which one?
Clerk of court has to hold that, I believe, for 24 months.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. I think that sounds about right.
The clerk of court has to hold that for probably, I think, 24 months.
What the funding? They hold that for
The excess that was brought in the day of the sale that exceeded the amount of taxes owed on the property.
any excess. You understand what she's saying?
Yeah, so the rest would be held for 24 months, then give back to the original owner.
No,
No, they give them
to the county.
To the
Don't
county.
want
The
to
excess
waste.
is.
Yeah, it's held for 24 months for the,
It's held,
I'm missing something.
the original owner's entitled to it, if they have to
Collect-
claim it.
right,
If they
yeah.
don't claim it, after 2 years, we keep it.
See,
I have to check the time frame for that.
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, and Steve, in your presentation, I grew up when you paid your bills. And, I'd like to see that, as far as where I'm coming from, I want to see the county pay their bills and build up some surplus so we don't have to borrow the money to carry us over in the slow time. But I don't like the idea of having a blue zillion dollars in surplus, because it sort of points to the fact that maybe we've overtaxed, if that's the point. So pay your bills, build up some excess, and keep the county
We're
moving.
required to have half a blue zillion, because it's 10% of the amount that's.
Well, I'm just telling you what sort of.
As soon as we get to that number, I'm leaving.
Well, I just don't like all this stuff hanging over us. It just eats me on me,
Well, that's the thing, we have to continue on collecting delinquents. I mean, from this point forward, we've done made that major step, and we need to continue on doing that.
We don't stop it.
And it's gonna take a while, it's gonna be spread out over 2, 3 years, just what we're doing this year.
Yeah.
And what we're starting to work on now. It's gonna take that much, and my concern is, if we sell it too quick, it brings in less. I just,
Typically, I'm looking into this a lot, what other places do that are good at this, is they don't sell it all at once. They do it about 20 to 30% at a time. And that's to avoid glut on the market and artificially deflating the value of those properties. So, that's number one. But the other step, though, that, and this is not my responsibility directly, but I have to make this observation. I don't think, the other half of what we gotta do is not let it become delinquent in the first place.
yep.
It's not okay to budget 88%, it's just not.
I agree with you, Steve. I think we need to budget.
Nobody does that anywhere, and we shouldn't do it either.
and it's just me. It is not a personal thing.
Right.
I mean, I'm not out to get anybody, and I've always tried to operate as a supervisor on that premise. I don't look, well, who lives on that road? Oh my goodness, that was that guy that worked against me for election. He ain't getting no dang road, and I tell you that. I never did that kind of stuff, and I tried to go where the need was, and I've asked Sheriff Gardner a ton of questions. It's not I'm out to get him or don't like him. That's my job. I feel like to make this money stuff go in a reasonable manner, and so you have to ask personal questions. And Sheriff Gardner, I sat down with him over an hour, and we went through things, and it's not a personal thing, but I guess you'd say, well, it's just business. It's not personal, but
Broke my heart for you.
I think we need to, as the taxes come in, we put some aside to our fund balance.
Oh, yeah.
And then we work on our priorities over here as they come in. We fund those items. So we do a split, because we just can't stop doing certain things. Economic development, that cuts our throat if we don't fund that. So, that would be my recommendation.
And just so you know, what I've been trying to do on is, I've been trying to make my own money in the IDA and use that, but you can't count on that. I mean, at some point, I might run out of that, and there's a certain amount of spending that's to pay for deals we've already done.
Yeah.
And that, I think we ought to budget for.
Yep.
We, maybe at least half of it, but your point is right up and down the line. I mean, there's things I think the citizens have come to expect from us that we should do the best we can to give them a quality service for the lowest price we can, and we should keep doing it.
You know, I really like the idea of the firm EMS building. I do. I think we need to be very firm with it. I think, you know.
Well, that gentleman, I mean, has done an outstanding job already.
Yes.
And although our spending in that area has increased out of necessity because times are changing, he's really helped mitigate the pain of those changes by being pretty darn efficient about billing. And we're gonna just get better at that, right?
I mean, I will share that at the last fire chiefs meeting that we went to, we discussed billing for fire calls. I mean, it's something that we've tossed around. It's been tossed around before. There's actually an ordinance on our books that says we can do that. It's never been enforced. and there's mixed emotions from the fire chiefs about that. And a lot of them feel like that if we've done that, it's going to cut into their fundraising activities. Everett can express how they felt about that too, but I don't see where that is going to be a lot more different than the volunteer rescue squads.
I agree.
I mean, they bill insurances. If the insurance companies, you know, they're going to pay. Most insurance companies have to where they will pay if you come out on a fire call of any sort. And I think it's something we need to look at. I really do. I mean, you take and look at how many house fires Hillsville's run this past year. It's in the 50 or 60, if I'm not.
It's back to, yes.
Yeah.
Year, yes.
And most insurance companies, from my understanding, will pay about $1,000 a time. I mean, that's a lot of revenue right there in itself that we need to try to capture. Joe, you've been involved with fire departments for a long time, and what is your thoughts? I mean,
well, you know, I was on Hillsville for 20 years as a volunteer. That was probably back during the day when we looked after each other, you know. And it's got to the point people don't want to volunteer anymore. So you got to go. You still got to provide the service, and you got to do whatever. Yeah, if the money's out there and it can be collected without putting any more hardship on the people that's had the fire loss.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing. We've got to make sure we educate the people to know that we're not going after them. We're going to go after the insurance company, you know. And if they've paid their insurance premiums and everything, that's something they're paid for.
And we're even going to ask them,
Yeah.
you know, if you can afford to pay this, here's your bill.
Yeah.
If you can't, write us a letter.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And, you know, in the curve of the increased billings that we can expect by getting better and better at doing billings of all kinds compared to, sadly, you know, the number of volunteers that will be available to help defray the cost of providing these services. And I imagine that would be pretty closely associated with the amount of donations and whatnot. You know, people give money to the volunteer fire department that their uncles do, or their brother, or their you know, whatever. So I don't know how we avoid that. I just don't.
I agree. I don't understand it either, and don't know where we can get it from. But I think it's something we really need to consider. Since it's there, it's in place. It's something we can do.
Question. Crystal, how much money do you think we need in reserve as a county to pick up, instead of establishing a line, not Crystal, I'm sorry, Nikki.
That's okay.
I wanted to hear that.
I know, I'm like.
She knows a lot.
Mama dropped me on my head when I was a baby, and sometimes I have these flashbacks. But Nikki, excuse me, Crystal, How much money do we need in reserve so that we don't have to establish a line of credit if we have some expenses that?
You mean for fund balance?
Yes.
So you don't have to issue a revenue anticipation note?
We need an additional $7 million in cash, give or take.
On top of what we have right now.
Depending on the timing of your billing, and, if you went to 2 times a year, it'd be less than that. But basically, it's just a recognition of the fact that the year starts in June, the bills go out at a different time, the money comes in, actually, if you look at the fund balance presentation I did, I can have that calculated in it, and I can send that to you.
That's to get our fund balance policy in compliance. In order to not issue a revenue anticipation note, I think you have to have at least $1 million additional. For the revenue anticipation
I know
note.
what you're saying.
So we're looking at needing 7 to 8 million, somewhere in that range.
In July.
Well, we have
July.
just under 7 now when things are going good, so we would need something like a little over 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that doesn't give us a reserve, that just gets us into the fund balance. That's another issue.
That saves us the money on the revenue anticipation note,
Yeah.
which, by the way, we're gonna go ahead and pay off, because we're just not giving them the instructions to do what we need to.
Okay.
We don't need it anymore, so that'll be on me if she doesn't like that.
It needs to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
What is that monthly?
what is it monthly? What is it running monthly? Is there a monthly payment on
It's
it?
$1,000, right?
$47 a day, I think.
47.
How much?
47.
47 times 30.
All right. 1,200, 1,349
Something
dollars.
like that.
So cut to the chase. We met the 400,000, or we came up by raking out the chicken house and getting what money we could to pay off the money for, was it regional jail? That
350,000.
$315,000, all right? So looking at the budget, what's coming up, what do we need to do?
I mean, that's because we're gonna have more in the jail, right?
Yeah.
Do we need to keep that million? That's the, or are we gonna be okay? That's
I
the
think we'll have
question.
enough cash to get through. That's a different issue.
I mean, we got the,
What we won't have is, we may not necessarily have enough money hidden away left in that existing budget that we can get through it without an adjustment on both sides. If that's what's going to happen.
What's the potential CSA?
We have a public hearing in March with an increase in the expenditure of roughly $1 million and an increase to the revenue of about 700. Like $1.1 million and 700,000 on the revenue for
so
a net of about
400,000 there.
400,000.
That's what we're going to get.
Okay. So if we can,
We exhausted most of the contingencies and overages existing on the expenditure side.
so if we can collect our unpaid taxes, we need to pull in 400,000, give or take.
That would be a great way to do it.
That looks what I'm
All right.
Bob, you're gonna have to get into your mattress and get that cash out.
Well, yeah, I know what.
One
The,
mason jars, buried in the backyard.
Those are hard to find when you bury them.
where I spent my money in the mattress, it's hard.
PSA, A stands for authority, and supervisors committing $1 million a year into it. Is there any way that we have any control over slowing down their spending? I know they're looking at another, probably grant and more spending. I feel like we're kind of need to get our feet on the ground and see where we stand, you know?
Well, let the council can correct me if I'm wrong, but you certainly are under no obligation as a board to become the moral obligor of any new debt that they want to incur. They would have to come and ask first. But with respect to what they've already spent, it kind of is what it is. You know, we can find better ways to pay for it, but we still got to pay.
There may be some opportunity to restructure some of the PSA debt.
Yeah, sure. But he's asking about, from an operational perspective, what can we do to encourage them not to spend so much money? The person that you appoint to that board should be very frugal, would be what I would say to you. Because that's really kind of how it works. And they were, you know, at the end of the day, the money comes from this room. And those are difficult decisions to make because everybody needs water. You're never going to break even on a rural water system. So it's how much are you willing to invest in something that is not going to be a moneymaker but improves the life for citizens? That's just one of those things. It's a hard decision.
I noticed it went up around 42,000 this year on that debt. Went up 42,000. Is that going to continue to go up?
It actually it went down this year, 40,000.
Okay, just in the middle of, all right.
And so, on the budget request, I had asked if we were looking at passing on they increased their rate last year.
Yeah.
And they passed on some of that rate increase to the board supervisors. I did, have some conversations on whether or not that was gonna be possible for the upcoming budget. And I think they are looking at, PSA is looking at a reduction in the revenue from the closing of the training center. It's pretty significant. And so, at this point, what is budgeted in the county budget is 100% of the agreements that we've already signed on.
Now, we can't do them like we do the citizens, make them continue to pay?
The training center,
Yes.
you,
The state owns it, correct? We mandate it that our citizens have to pay.
They'll have to continue to pay, but the volume will be.
The volume will be down,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, no, they still gotta pay the bill, but their bill's gonna be what, an eighth of what it used to be. There's some huge decrease in forecast.
So they'll go back to a minimal usage fee, basically, is what they'll go
I
back
don't
to.
know that they'll go all the way back there until the day it actually shuts. If the day it actually shuts, yeah, that's what it'll be.
And that'll be water and sewer.
We got people paying a non-user fee, paying taxes, part of their taxes going to pay that. And we got people in the county that hadn't got it and will be years before they'll get it.
Or
They're
never
paying
get it.
taxes towards the million we're giving them. And I got neighbors, been down to court last week, one of them told me, said, supervisors, judge told him, he's told me, the judge told him supervisors was the cause of him having to pay the non-user fee. He had to apply judgment on him. So, just PSA, it worries me that we'll just keep on digging a hole deeper. If we tell the people the truth that's got the water, what they're gonna have to pay, a lot of them would say, unhook me.
Well, that's a discussion for a different day, but
Can't find nothing.
if we were able to find a way to
Yeah, you tell me.
refinance all that debt, so that we could get out from underneath the requirements for non-connection fees and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing stopping us from doing that, except for wasting money. You know, it's gonna be more expensive than what we got now, so that's a business decision that this board would have to make. If this board agreed that getting out from under those fees was a desirable outcome, as opposed to, like I said, rural utilities, it's not a win, it's tough.
Thank you, I'm sorry, we'll get back to the subject.
Let's jump over to the school board. Have you heard anything at all from them?
Well, they've heard something from us, we didn't hear from them. And I told them what,
Did they not have a budget meeting? I mean, I can't find anything on the website.
They supposedly had
Approved the
approved, they had a
budget.
budget meeting and approved it last month.
That's not what they told us, but you could.
I thought they were approving it on the 26th of March. I think they had a public hearing for comments on the.
Maybe that's what it
Maybe that's-
was. Maybe that's what it was.
This past.
I do know they had a public hearing. I'm sorry.
We had a private meeting, and we were pretty far apart. Frankly. You know, what I told them that we needed to have and what they told us that they needed to have was pretty freaking far apart. So we just gotta keep looking.
There was an email from the treasurer about personal property unpaid, and
I actually got, she responded to me today, and I was gonna share that with everyone just a minute, and I haven't had the chance to share it, so I'll share it now. I sent her a question and asked her what she was trying to explain in this email that she sent, talking about the personal property 2017 supplement number 5, which contained 13.7, all that. She says that what that she's saying is that she can't pull that from there, but we can't publish anything that's delinquent in 2017 yet. So, and I said, that's not a problem. I said, if we need to compose, if we need to manually pull that out of the list for you, we'll manually pull it out of the list for
I
you.
can get that.
And that's kind of, yeah, and that's what she said.
so we could do
We can-
16.
We can still do 16, but, you know, that's the way she responded, and I don't know, you know,
Well, that's two different, the larger issue there, in my view, is she needs to give you that list even if we can't publish it.
that's basically what I said to her when I spoke to
But
her.
I bet we could.
Yeah,
That's two different issues.
yeah, it's totally different, so.
We should be able to look at it and see the dates, and make that determination ourselves, should we not?
Yes, we
From what
can.
we got.
You're entitled to, not only you're entitled to those lists,
That's-
you're entitled to go in to the treasurer's office and inspect the books at any time. So that information, if that's your information, that's the county's information, except for certain things that are carved out as confidential, that can't be disclosed. What you're asking for, you're entitled to at any time.
I think we ought to go ahead and send a letter now for August coming up. You know, just to get that list as well, because, you know, that was be the next step once we deal with this, and we need to keep that going forward. Would you recommend us just go ahead and send a letter requesting we want that for that date? What is it, August 1st?
August 1st.
Yeah, absolutely like that.
I mean,
I mean-
it gives us plenty of lead time so that,
She sent that email. My response to her was, I'm a little confused as to what you're saying. Are you saying that the personal property list cannot be published at all, or that it cannot contain 2017 delinquents? She said, no, it cannot include 2017 delinquents. And I sent back to her, that's fine. If we need to compose the list for you, we'll take the time to, and get staff to pull and compose the list. So, go ahead.
I don't agree with that statement. I think it's delinquent, it's delinquent. I think that maybe what she was referring to is it hasn't been delinquent long enough to send that letter that you're gonna sell the property and refer to
Okay.
the collection.
This is personal property.
Personal property. This is all, there's nothing about the real estate on this.
If it's delinquent, it's delinquent.
Well, I kind of, we were talking about delinquents a while ago, and I don't mean to jump back to something else, gentlemen, but I will. After reading everything that I have read in state code, it becomes delinquent on December 6th of 2000 and whatever of that year. It becomes delinquent property, and we can demand payment at that time, correct? So I don't see why we have to be, I mean, I think we're being courteous by not demanding anything other than that, but,
So couldn't you publish it with a disclaimer?
yes, you can.
And I've seen other localities do that. This is delinquent as of this date. So sometimes they'll say this is delinquent as of February 2017.
I sent her an example of Shenandoah County, how they done theirs, and let her look at it. And I think we've been more than patient, and it's time to move. And she has till 10 o'clock Friday. That's what we give her.
All right, question. All right, so what is, Steve and Nikki, what are your recommendations for this? In what direction should this board proceed at this point? I mean, what do we need to zero in on? It sounds like on real estate, our ducks are pretty well lined up. All right, I'm not sure about personal property that's unpaid, but I mean, on our budget.
Personal property is a little different because we don't have this, us, this group, you and me and Nikki working for you, don't have as much leverage as we do with the real estate, but you've already passed the resolution asking for the list, which you are 100% entitled to. And we've asked her to implement modern collection methods like DMV stops and some of the other things that we talked about in the resolution that you passed. And if we do those things, I'm expecting to see a bigger increase on the personal property side than on the real estate side because, and again, I'm not running down anybody, but our performance is terrible on the personal property side. It's among the worst in the state. And if we just got to be average, that would get us pretty close to getting us through our crisis this year with the CSA. And then we could turn to, proper budgeting for next year, like we talked about. And maybe we could, if we got a little bit better at it, we could put a prudent amount of money back into contingency. I'm not saying maybe it's just so fat that nobody got to worry, just a little bit. So just in case something happens, and so on. I'd like to be further to this side of the bowling alley than this side. But we'll go wherever you feel like we need to go. I mean, that would be great if we could get through this year out of delinquent taxes we weren't expecting. And I don't mean, go out and have a barbecue with it. I mean, let's not make the same mistakes again next year. But it would be fantastic if we didn't have to, in effect, go raising the fund balance again. Because there's just not that much left. We're just getting really close to that red line. We want to be on this side. We're almost there.
So does that mean,
Well,
did we take 2 steps forward or 1 back?
Did I not answer your question? The question is, we just need the answer to me is, I think we have a good plan on the real estate side, we ought to execute it. And on the personal property side, we just need to, in whatever way works best. We have lots of different levels of relationships and different ways to interact with Renita and her staff. But we just need to really encourage her to use the tools that are available to her. And if she does, we will almost immediately, and I think we will move from being in the 60s, somewhere in the 60% range to somewhere in the 80% range. That would be a gigantic improvement. And that doesn't mean that's not going to cure every problem that we've got. But that would be a gigantic improvement that costs us nothing.
What makes it, where is the fine line with personal property, Steve? I mean, is it what makes it so hard to do anything with with collecting?
Well, I'm not sure what it is they owe money on, that's all. Other than that, there is no fine line. We have the same, we just can't, we can't instruct, we can't have a sale. Like,
I mean, that's,
It's an easier process to, you've got such great leverage with the real estate
Mhm.
because no one can run out of Carroll County
with the real estate, yeah.
So you can find it. Usually there's lenders involved, there's a fine process where you
Yeah.
can sell it, and it has some value. Lots of times, some of this personal property, it's been taxed and it hasn't been paid for years and years, and it's not worth anything if you seize it.
Okay.
You're not gonna make any money back.
Okay, that's basically what I was asking. I mean, that's what I didn't, yeah.
And we can assist with collecting personal property tax, but you really want to be judicious about getting your bang for your buck. So, big ticket items, we can come in and assist with, but I really recommend the DMV stops and.
Well, we recommended that hard.
So we're up to speed on the real estate very soon, and we can continue the process on personal property and what we don't achieve this year on personal property, we can continue to improve on how it's done.
From what I've heard in the Commissioner Revenue's office, a lot of there's a lot of property, personal property, that has been maybe sold and not retitled for one reason or another, and it's still showing up on, I sold it to Rex, but it's still showing up on mine because Rex never titled it. He's just running it up down the road, probably with a farm use tag on it or something to that effect, you
I
know.
ask you to pay Rex.
I know it, you know.
He owes, that happened to one of my constituents.
He owes me money anyway.
And
so
I told him, fortunately, when I talked to him, I told him we was getting ready to sell people's property. I didn't know he was delinquent on his property till later. He paid that when he come up here.
I mean, they're still liable for that, correct? I mean, unless they go back through the DMV process and prove that it was sold at a certain time, or they still?
I can tell you as a person who just experienced it.
So,
Well, there's a tag on your registration that you're supposed to send within 30 days after you sell the
yeah.
vehicle.
But,
yeah.
And that should take.
but there's no enforcement, unless it's a
DMV doesn't-
DMV officer.
I hate to
That's
see
the
you in
process.
prison in Loudon County or wherever it is.
Taxpayer can,
Three hots in the car.
taxpayer can contest that and say, well, this is the bill of sale, they can demonstrate that they've sold it, but if it's titled in their name, they have to pay the tax unless and until they show that it's been sold.
I had that happen. I had a vehicle get totaled, and I sold it to a salvage yard.
Yeah.
Well, it took 2 years, and DMV never, and it was still showing up on my tax.
Process the salvage.
Yeah, and they never, and I finally had to go back through a process through DMV and prove that it was gone, and that they had took it at that time through the insurance company. And of course they, you know, but
Would we be better off getting a collection agency to deal with the personal property after a certain date? After if we get the DMV stops and all that sort of thing, and then there's stuff there, would that be, do some counties do that?
Yeah, some counties do that. You may wanna look at it. I'd like to see what you get with the tools that you have, because I don't think you've been using the tools.
Right.
No, I haven't.
I wanna see how that goes and maybe focus with the treasurer's office on the debt that's getting old. Let's get everyone in, let's summons them in, get them to sign, an agreement so that you can have more time to collect. And you protect that and start using the DMV stops and the tax set-off. You may get satisfactory results that way. But yes, I mean, if it comes to it, there are options out there.
Would that be a process that we could just institute, keep it after it gets to a certain point, that we just say, hey, this is where it's going?
Automatic.
So we don't, I mean, we make a decision now that say, next year, in 2015 or whatever, from that point back or forward, if you don't pay your personal property, it goes to collection agency.
Yeah, I don't see why you can't adopt a policy that, if it's more than X months or weekend or something, we're gonna patch it up and send it out.
That's what we're doing.
If 50% of the people that owe personal property tax have money coming back to them from the state on their state income tax return, that's where you're gonna get, that's where they got me.
I agree.
That got my attention right away.
I agree.
That right there, if you do the math on that population, that's gonna take you from the high 60s to the low 80s. And that is gonna make a tremendous difference about the amount of money we've got to play with when we're figuring out what to do.
So that process, what do we have, I mean, that's just totally up to the,
Something she can
Pretty
do.
tedious process of the setup.
repeat that, I didn't
It's
quite.
a pretty tedious process. You have to enter a new list every year for set off debt, and I think there's a window that's only open for a specified period of time, but you literally have to like hand key this information into a database for the state.
We'll help them all.
I don't think it comes as any surprise that this has been kind of a gravel in my crawl for some years, and it's probably been 8 or 9 years ago, I talked to Junior Young in Grayson County, and I asked them what they did, and they have a formula and a plan that they do every single year. And it comes from the treasurer's office. They mail out the tax tickets about two months ahead of time, and then they're due on December the 5th. And if they're not paid by, it takes a while to get everything in that's been mailed because it has to process through. They send out a second notice that is now delinquent along with the fee that goes along with the penalty. Then they do another billing kind of in late spring, and on, I think it was August 1st, or then it was, they published a list. I mean, they had a set thing they did every single year that people could expect. And they knew that they didn't pay the second time, their names would appear in the paper.
We could probably,
And I've talked to our treasurer about doing that, and I've never gotten anywhere about trying to set up a specific deadline for everything that happens.
but they can bid that out to have someone to do the mail-ins. If they just give them the information, we pay the cost of that, so that you use less manpower to do that sort of thing. Just like we give them the, that thing they sent out, that we give them, what was that from? The county where you sent out two things.
Oh,
at once.
they, is it Patrick County?
Patrick County.
Yeah.
We give it to y'all, where they would mail two things out for that was.
But the whole point was to try to get something that's definitive every single year.
Right.
And you don't have to go
I
through
mean-
this all the
Yeah,
time.
and it's laid out, A, B, C.
We don't send out, our treasurer's department don't send out the billings themselves. They go from a billing agency, correct? I mean, it could be set up to where that same billing agency automatically sent out, just what you're talking
With a
about.
phone call.
Money for that extra visit.
But they have dates that all this stuff clicks in.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And another thing, getting back to the delinquent taxes, what I was thinking about, we were talking about the fund balance, and we were talking about putting it into the budget. And I'm just kind of throwing out something to consider, but what I would like to see is maybe take the first $1 million that comes in from delinquent taxes and put it toward the budget. Anything above and beyond that, go into the fund balance until it gets to our 10% of whatever we need to keep the best business practices going, and then the rest of it goes back into the budget again. I
Would
mean,
that $1 million also include getting us through this year? Is that what you're thinking?
yeah.
Well, I think that if it includes that, I think that's a very reasonable amount. I don't know what you all.
But, I mean, that way it's forcing us to work on the fund balance as well as kind of cushioning our budget at the same time.
Yeah, and you don't, I mean, I know Rex in particular feels very strongly about this, and he's not wrong. You don't want to get in the habit of operating delinquent funds, but you don't want to get in the habit of having your delinquent funds be this freaking huge either.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's both.
But I think if we finally get an aggressive collection process, we can get $1 million.
But what we're doing though, they've not put it in this budget, so we should be okay, and they've increased the CSA, and they've increased the jail, so we should be okay, and that other stuff, as it comes in, then we pass it out. to, if we're gonna have to do something with the school,
But
'cause it sounds like.
we've been
they're-
budgeting it in the past, but nobody's been collecting it, so it didn't help us any.
Right.
What, do we have a budgeted amount in for delinquents this year? Okay.
Right now, it's,
Right now, it's zero.
but that's on a, no contingencies, no.
Yeah,
savings.
yeah, and I got
The
you,
initial
yeah,
budget in your book
yeah,
has nothing past it.
okay.
Now, if we went over to the other side of the bowling alley, I'd recommend something along the lines of what Dr. Littrell is saying, but including getting us through this year as well. That's, without having to go back to the fund balance now.
Yeah.
But again, it's just what we agreed to.
But it doesn't look like any of these funds are gonna come in till maybe October at the earliest. Even if we start,
Coming in now.
Yeah, she's getting some.
I know because people,
Here's what we have going for us this year, and this is kind of ironic, that this is a good thing, this one last time. We're gonna come in probably above what we budgeted on the collection, because we budgeted so low. And that could be the first installment, that amount. But we get out of the habit of budgeting so low, and then we're more judicious with the collecting of the 5 million, and that'll get us where we need to be. But we will get some of it before October, but only for that reason. Right?
Nikki was about to faint, but I didn't.
No, I don't know if we're gonna make what's in the budget
I
this
didn't
year.
say that, but it won't be zero. I mean,
You think we're going to make something, but not what was budgeted, correct? Is that what you're saying?
I think we're gonna collect, as a result of what's already happening, I think we may collect more than what we budgeted. On the revenue side, but that doesn't, budget, as you all know, has two sides. And that's not, that's just me. We keep it up like, the possibility exists, and if it happens that way, that's what I would like to do. If it doesn't, then we're gonna have to, search on this. What were you gonna say, Bob? I didn't interrupt you. I'm sorry.
It's totally, but it's in line with what Philip said. It's totally off budget, but I wanted to ask Steve something.
Go ahead.
Steve, the
Go ahead.
lawyer, Steve. Right, all right, I met with Kim Cloud, our voter registrar, and we spoke at length today about redistricting.
It's just a thought. I mean, you do what you want.
All right, that's pursuant to section legal matter.
Oh, you want to do it right now? Okay. Make a motion then, sir.
All right.
That would be, that would
Mr.
be-
Chairman, I move that
That would be
we,
8.8.
I move, is 898?
2.23711.
2.23711, yes.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into executive session pursuant to the code number that Steve and Steve, it's Bob and Bob, Steve and Steve's said, which is
16711.
that legal matter?
Legal matter?
The discussion with legal counsel.
It will be, A7.
7 or 8, yeah. You gotta fix that, Ronnie. That's not, that thing's actually not quite right.
Okay. This one don't have an AA on, A8 on
But it
it.
needs to.
It goes from 7 to 13.
we need to put one.
So I have a motion from Bob that we enter closed session to discuss some matters with legal counsel.
Second.
I have a second. Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw? Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
Mr.
And I
Martin?
vote yes.
And I vote yes. We'll enter closed session.
If he's worked on that.
What's that? Well, why don't we just go across?
Okay.
Yeah.
We got the camera running.
said prepare.
Oh,
Done it last two.
My wife asked me, was I going to the meeting dressed as I am? And I said, well, I know I'm going to change into a tuxedo.
Time when they need them, so to speak. Not really, but you know what I mean. They're okay.
Can we watch part of them? She's been helping me sing. She told me that night, she said, "Mother, you always give." If they with you, they do a lot for you. Your mom calls, was she still at home? Well, I seen what she said today. It used to, people really, she's close. So I said, that one good, that good. Kids said, I was thinking about the school too.
People that can divine watering, it fascinates me. We'll see. It's something, yeah, there's something peculiar about it. I mean, it's all.
I've been blessed since electricity. Yeah.
I got it.
It might be right. Because it's a shadow of light.
My water, and the reason I know this is because I've got a fish aquarium, and I was wanting to get, do saltwater, what they call a reef, the micro. But to do that, you gotta have still, first off, you can't have anything in it. So I just wondered what I thought. Most time you have 300 to 400 parts per million of stuff, and that's pretty normal, right? I tested mine, and my water has got only 19 parts per million, and the rest of it is pure water. It is a wonderful well. I don't know why it's so clean, but it is a very, very, very clean water. And mom and dad, in that, not where they're at now, but in that brick house, they didn't have good water at all. It was, had problems getting surface water in it. I mean, it was bad. But now the well they're in and we're in that mobile home, it's good.
Here's something like that as well. A whale. It was in this kitchen. Everyone else. That dude, boy, that's oh, mom and dad like, the kids,
Hey.
I'm going to one boys' room.
Grayson, will it be a legal meeting if we? No, I mean. Well, see, I just was wondering about that. I'd have,
I'd much rather have my own business.
Robbie, several years ago, there was like a balloon kind of thing in the tissue here. And every time I moved my elbow, it'd go boop, boop, boop. And I went to Baptist, and they did surgery on it down there. And it
We're
was,
gonna read all this.
this was in the tendons or something. It's supposed to close up after sometime in your
Infancy? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
probably in your
mine
growth
didn't-
plate area.
Mine didn't, and so they went in there and did their magic stuff, and I was numb laying there and shooting bull with them, and I can talk operations and stuff with anybody.
I need a motion to return to open session, please.
So I'll make a motion to return to open session.
I need a second.
I second it.
Have a second. Voting, Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Dr. Little.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And I vote yes. We also need to certify that we only discussed A7 and A8 while in closed session.
I move that we certify executive session.
Need a second.
Second.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Dr. Littrell.
Also certify.
Mr.
Yes.
Martin.
I vote yes.
And I so certify. We're back in open session. All right, you want to ask that question again, Bob?
I forgot what question I was.
Question was, do we need another budget meeting? And the answer is yes, we do.
Okay.
We need to, if we successfully agree tonight on an approach towards building the budget that you're actually going to pass, that would be a huge step forward. And we would go build a budget based around those parameters. I bet you there will still be questions remaining. There will still be areas that you all want to take a deeper dive into, and that's fine. That's one reason we need another budget meeting. But the main reason we still need another budget meeting is, the biggest open budget item that we have left is to nail down is the relationship with the school, and we're just not done yet. And until that's in place, we really don't have a budget.
Did they give us a number on the, what do you call it, the number of students, ADM?
No, sir, not yet. I think they had a meeting, they haven't gotten their funding from the state yet. There was still there were two versions, there was a Senate version and a House version, and they hadn't determined what their funding strategy was gonna be yet. So they were waiting until they figured out what that would be. Did she say the ADM was gonna be built off of, right now is it 3612? They're gonna base it off 3600, I think. Is that right? I think they did, they
You're
might
talking
give
about how
us.
many students?
Yeah, ADM.
Yeah, it went down.
Rex, I
She was
think
going down like 12 students, was their assumption.
it just came to me while I was
That's because they've got a bunch of them graduating, or have graduated by
Yeah,
now.
December. I talked to her before, or in November, and Tammy said that they were projecting, I think, about 18 to graduate, and, so he's pretty close.
She also, and she said the reason that it wasn't just all of us, they were actually in the lower grade levels, people were coming in for whatever reason, which I thought was interesting, in the elementary schools.
A plug for Carroll County Schools. I can tell you from substituting in two counties in the neighboring state, One was probably, I rated about 80% of the behavior in school that Carroll County has. And the other one, at one point, was about 50%. And Carroll County has a excellent, the discipline system is excellent in the schools, and school rules are. So I give them a pat on the back, so don't blame them for coming in.
All right, gentlemen, I guess the thing we need to decide is if we want to proceed with Steve's initial budget, his goal-oriented budget, or if we want to do a hybrid style budget. Need some recommendations, and
I like the numbers that we've got here. What Tom, he was talking about the $1 million, what we was going to put that in the CIP.
we'll just back to
Well, I mean, you put it where you want it to, but I mean, it just, I think if we think we can collect it, we ought to be able to spend it.
Well, I agree. We started.
There's no sense having a fantasy number there, but I mean, if we're serious about collecting it, I think that's a reasonable number.
And I think we're making efforts, making motions toward being very diligent with that. And I agree with you, Tom. I think if it's there, we need to try to use it.
So we're just going to put that in CIP. Is that what kind of?
Well, what we were hoping to do is we could get the authorization to take some of the past dues. Yeah, a lot of it would be CIP because economic development's actually CIP. That's one thing I'd like to do with it. And then we could take the first one or two most important things down the list on the CIP. The other thing, though, would be to put back the contingencies, like the ones that we used this year to get through the crisis with the
Economic development would be an excellent one to put some in.
Yeah, and then, you know, like I said, there's some economic development that's already spent, you know, and deals that we've already agreed. And on those deals, I've been trying to pay for them with money from the IDA, but at some point you run out, and you need some. And also, the new deals are even more important, because that's the seed corn.
Right. Well, I think that's the most important is economic development. Then the next step. That caused me to forget what I was going to ask you. No, that was. I think that's the most important thing is the economic development thing.
So is everybody in agree? Do we need a motion on the way you need it, or just what you think our general? I feel a hybrid and doing, and I'm just going to go out and say this, and you know, I know Bob says he likes spending time with us, but not as much as he does his wife. And I think it's important for us all to be a part of this budget process. I think it's very important. I think us to do due diligence for our constituents, we need to be very aware of what's going on with the budget and be very aware of where the money is going. And there's no better way to get that than to get educated from staff. And I think that's why I think it's important for us to have our budget meetings during this process and to understand it fully.
I do want to ask one thing is you do a quarterly update on where we are with the budget. You know,
After we get it initiated.
yeah, starting in October, September, or whatever, do quarterly, so we
And-
know where we stand.
I'm going to help Rex out here a little bit, I think. On the charitable contributions, I would like for us to have some more information on some of these.
All the requests that I have to date are in your book.
Okay.
They're behind the Board of Supervisors tab.
And let me just expunge a little bit. Like, for instance, Feeding America. I would like to know how it helps us out. Where do the people here, because if you go to the Feeding America website, the closest one shows is Roanoke, with one place in Galax to obtain food from. And I would like for us to have a little more information about where that's coming from, how it is helping the people of the county out. Kind of along the same lines with the brain injury, you know, where's it, you know, where's it at? Where's it helping us? And I wish Everett hadn't got gone. I looked at the Southwest Virginia EMS today.
Yeah.
It's not been updated since 2016. It still shows Mike Malk as board member on that. And those are kind of things, what do we benefit from that? And those are questions that it may be in here, I don't know, but those are things that I think we need to be aware of before we make decisions on what we do and don't do with that.
I have asked any of the agencies that I've talked to specifically to include some of that information.
That's
You'll
great.
find that in the Family Resource Center. They had called on Friday, and I told them to include in their request how it's beneficial to Carroll County. Philip, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but does the Feeding America truck still come down to St. Paul School as a distribution point? Do you know? I can find out. I'd like to find out, because hearing that,
I don't know.
typically they've been down to St. Paul.
Okay. It's just, we need to be able to promote it if it's there for the people to, something else.
Now, I did get 4 in the mail today, so they haven't made it into your books yet, so I will have to come up with a method of distributing
Okay.
that information to you all.
Nothing personal, but, and I think I was on the board that made the motion, we contribute 5,000 to Freeze YMCA. I'd like to.
Rec Center.
Rec Center, excuse me. And I'd like to know how many Carroll County folks that,
Yeah, we haven't actually paid that.
Into-
We had put in a request to the Recreation Center several years back for some agreed upon procedures within the organization, and we have not received that, so we then had not sent the money to the Recreation
Okay.
Center.
I
We
even,
haven't had a request.
I even talked to the guy that's in charge of the recreation department, said, get your stuff in, you get your money.
yeah.
And nothing was sent in last year or this year. And, that's the only place that people across the river have
Yeah,
to go to, so, but
Yeah.
you can either leave it in there or take it out.
yeah.
It don't get spent.
Yeah.
The other question I have is about the contingency. You talking about putting 100,000 or something like that in?
It's more like, in the last page of the book, it's roughly about 80. Typically, there's
Would
a
you-
capital project reserve and a personnel contingency and other contingency.
Would you put that under the Board of Supervisors? So that's the first thing we see when I look at the budget. It'd be under the Board of Supervisors.
So, okay.
That puts it right up on the first page.
I know what my other question was. It's been tossed around a little bit about billing the town for part of the assessment. Is that something we would do, or is that something the Commissioner of Revenue's office needs to do? Because Fran says she feels like we should be able to bill them $17,000 for the assessment.
I was under the impression that they had done that. No, they've
It's-
never done that?
no.
Okay.
If you would, so if you all got what you all need to proceed,
Oh,
I think so.
okay.
So we will produce basically a hybrid budget that has some of the contingency put back in,
Yes.
some of the economic development put back in, and those will be in places where you can easily see it. And then we will make an assumption that we can use some reasonable amount of the past due taxes to help pay for that on a budgeting for revenue basis. And we're also going to pray for help on getting through this year from some of the past due taxes that we're going to maybe collect over, closer in. And so what we'll put that together, we'll distribute it to you as a single budget, and then we could receive feedback on that.
Sounds great.
Does that sound like what?
Sounds good to me. Does everyone want to agree with that?
I do.
Yes.
That's what we'll do.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Have we ever formally hired a legal firm to handle collecting
the collection, we discussed RFPs, I think. Is that something we need to do, or?
And my own view on that is no.
Okay.
We actually have used this firm
Yes.
in the past, and I actually reviewed the results of that, and it looked acceptable. And because we want to break it up into tranches anyway, you know, we're only going to do 15, 20, 30% of it at a time.
So we don't want to get several different agencies.
I don't want to have more than one firm at a time on it anyway, but I can be convinced. I mean, if y'all would prefer an RFP, I'll be happy to issue one, but I think they know how to do it. I really do. It doesn't cost us anything directly because they take all of their fees on the collection. It's above and beyond the taxable amount collected. They're authorized to add that, and they take it out of this, not this. So it's.
What if it doesn't sell for the amount?
If it sells for less than what's owed on it, then that's a bad thing, and it happens sometimes.
So we don't get anything, but the attorney does. That's the question.
They have to collect the whole amount. That's
I mean,
how-
on a sale, let's say it's worth $7,000 and we sell it for $500,
I don't think
and the
they-
lawyer's fees is higher than that.
No, so if you're a delinquent taxpayer, state code says that you pay the cost of collection. So when we sell it and it does. Let's say when you sell it and it does bring enough money, that of course the county doesn't pay anything.
Right.
If we get to a situation where the property really isn't worth much and we've tried to sell it once and the judge didn't approve it because it didn't bring enough money, we're now, we're letting, sold it again. Sometimes this happens. We adjust our fees accordingly, and it's never out of pocket of Carroll County. But we have adjusted our fees in the past to get property sold, get it back on the tax roll.
So could we get a recommended, a methodology for adjusting the fees based on how much we need to apply that could be written into that agreement? A fee adjustment. In other words, let's say it comes in at 80% instead of 100%. You know, you can do a straight proration and you can come up with, you know, I'd actually prefer a logarithmic adjustment. Can we put something like that in there?
I'd have to talk to.
Would you ask?
I'd have to talk to the guys who are actually going to do the tax work.
Well, that's fair.
I think typically we've done it on a case by case, but it works out. It's got to be something that's acceptable to the treasurers and the county.
Well, what I will say, though, in fairness, is I did review the results of the last time we did this, and it looks like we got more than our money's worth. It was a success. And I got to be honest with you, they didn't have the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
To work.
Actually, that's what Rex was just looking at. I mean, showing, he actually got a copy of those from the sale, the last in the sale.
A lot of them Cascade dogwood, and they gotta have water or.
So that's the problem. They
Yeah.
were valued at $7,000, but they only bring $500
The better the
or
That means they were assessed
$660. They were
incorrectly.
assessed too high.
quicker you're going to get paid too. Usually the higher quality properties, once you send those notices out, payment's going to come in.
Yeah.
So instead of maybe 20% in the first 3 months, you're going to get 35%.
I mean, I feel like those properties that were sold in August were very poor choices. I'll say that because I feel like they were. Because those lots at Cascade were not valued, were valued at $7,000, but they weren't.
The only reason that they were lots at all, you know the story.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy that was trying to game the system and screw himself.
Yeah.
So, it should all have been sold as one great big piece of land.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
And then they were spotted out over the entire property, those lots were.
Yes, because the attorneys wanted to kind of group them together
Yeah.
and had put in a second request about some additional properties to see if they could group some together.
Could we put on the March agenda then hiring a firm and whatever? I'm ready to go tonight, but,
I don't know that, yes, the answer is of course we do, but we don't need to wait.
No, we need to do it it now.
We already passed the resolution saying go get the money. We need to do it.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the firm.
Steve Anderson. Anderson.
Sands Anderson.
If you want to make the motion, go ahead and make the motion.
I
Pass it.
move that we employ Sands Anderson's firm, subject to approval from the county administrator's office about the fee structures or whatever.
Okay, sure, we will agree on terms.
Okay.
I think I sent you a copy.
Yes.
I sent everybody a copy of what, one of
Yeah,
those things were.
I've got it.
So I have a, go ahead.
Let's do the motion.
I have a motion from Bob that we accept Stans Anderson as our attorney at.
Second.
Have a second by Tom. Do we have any other discussion? Start the voting with you, Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
My question was, can you see the funds coming in from sales? I mean, what I'm, I don't know the revenues, it comes in. Do you have a spot that you see that's on a computer somewhere
Or do you have to get
that
a
you can
report?
tell that say, all right, I know we're 20 more % is coming in this year than it was this time last year?
It's not really easy in our system that I've figured out to look at, but I kind of monitor it daily, to be honest with you. I'm kind of, so, like, over the last, what?
It's not surprising.
You know, I do. I've been watching it daily just because we've been waiting for these to come in for quite some time, and it's been so busy that it's obvious the traffic has picked up. So we're, I just print the revenue report every day and compare it from yesterday.
I mean, compare it to last year, that's what I want to see. That way it gives me an idea, especially at this point in time because of the advertising, the discussion and everything that's been going on about the delinquents.
I can look.
It would just be-
I can get a trend on it for you.
It would be interesting to know too
If this is working,
if it's working, if Benita can generate a report that says, this is what I've collected in delinquent taxes.
well, we can see it in the revenue report if you'll look at it that she gives us each and every month, but that don't, unless I look at over time, I don't see that.
It's not easy for us to see what's current and what's delinquent.
Yeah.
You can only just see the total, but that she can do it if she wanted to.
All right, that might be a request of,
Shouldn't we have the,
let's let this other stuff
shouldn't
sink
we
in
have the
first.
ability to, I mean, if we have the right to ask for things, the next step is to have tie into the computer system to where we have that ability.
It says you have the right to go inspect the books.
Inspect the books that wouldn't be construed as access to the computer.
Why not?
I think-
As long as it's read-only.
I think, yeah,
Since about 1955,
I don't know the system. I would like to be able to look myself. If I come over here and type in whatever system looks, I can look at it and access it and say, hey, okay. Play with the numbers, whatever.
I think that would be a worthy goal to work toward.
I think
Okay.
maybe we need to wait and see what transpires between
Yes.
now and Friday, and then we go from there.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I have had more people congratulate us on our efforts to collect these delinquent taxes than anything else I've ever done on the board. And I have not had a single person say that we were doing something wrong.
I haven't had anybody tell me that either.
So I think it's a very positive thing we're all trying to do.
Well, and people have figured out the bill's gotta be paid, and if somebody doesn't pay, it throws it on the people that are paying in a lot of different ways.
We ready to adjourn?
Yes, I'm ready.
I moved to
I'm ready for an adjournment if anybody
I
else
move to
is.
adjourn.
I have a motion for an adjournment. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a second for an adjournment. Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
I vote yes. We are adjourned.
When's our next budget meeting?
It'll be after
I mean, it's on the calendar. Is it, send our calendar out again if you would, please.